Imagine you're playing a like a massive open world video game.
Oh, I love those.
Right. But you categorically refuse to leave the starting zone. Like, you won't start the main quest until you have the absolute perfect gear, your stats are totally maxed out, and, you've memorized every single strategy.
You're just stuck.
Exactly. You're just sitting there grinding away at these super basic tasks, thinking, like, well, I can't play the real game yet. I'm not flawless enough.
Right.
And according to the document we're diving into today, that is exactly how the vast majority of us live our actual lives. We put our entire sense of purpose on hold, just waiting for this perfection that is literally never going to arrive.
It is such a profound trap. And honestly, it's why I'm so excited for today's deep dive. If you're listening, you might notice my backdrop has completely shifted. I'm sitting in this dimly lit antique library right now.
Very moody.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's filled with all these centuries-old philosophical texts and these massive, intricate star charts, because that is the intellectual landscape we're exploring today. We are taking a microscope to a really specific, incredibly dense synthesis of wisdom known simply as Day 119.
Day 119.
Right. It's this crucial chapter from a broader collection called The Condition of Meaning, Wisdom for an Imperfect Life.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the central mind-bending thesis of this document, it completely flips how we view our daily struggles. The fundamental argument here is that your imperfection is not the obstacle to a good life. It is the door.
Yeah, the door.
And to prove this, the synthesis draws on just an unbelievable range of minds. I mean, we're talking about Roman emperors, Russian novelists, modern cosmologists, and even professional football quarterbacks.
What's fascinating here is how all these completely disparate voices, separated by thousands of years and coming from totally different disciplines, they all weave together four distinct threads.
Right.
Imperfection, scale, time, and virtue. The document takes these four threads and builds this incredibly compelling case that accepting our fundamental flaws is really the only starting point for meaning. I mean, everything else is just a distraction.
Wow. Well, let's start right where that friction happens, right? Our own flaws, the everyday setbacks that make us feel like we're just failing at life. The document actually opens with a really straightforward observation from the counselor John Bradshaw.
Oh, the mistakes quote.
Yeah, he just says mistakes are our teachers. Now, on the surface, that sounds like something you'd see, cross-stitched on a pillow.
Yeah, it definitely does. But that simplicity is so deceptive. The text uses Bradshaw as this really gentle entry point right before it just totally drops the floor out from under you with Leo Tolstoy.
Tolstoy, the Russian novelist.
The very same. Tolstoy takes that whole mistakes as teachers idea and radically escalates it in his Calendar of Wisdom. He argues that illness, failure, physical decline, they are not interruptions to our real work in life. They actually are the work.
That goes entirely against our modern wiring. I mean, if I get a bad cold or, I completely botch a major project at work, my immediate psychological response is that my life has been put on pause.
Totally.
I think like, okay, once I get over this, I can get back to being a good, productive person.
Right, but Tolstoy argues that this whole pause button mentality is just an illusion based on ego. He points out that illnesses destroy our physical power and, honestly, our illusion of control. But in doing so, they release the power of the soul.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The mechanism here is super profound. When you can no longer rely on your physical strength or your worldly success, you're literally forced to locate your worth in the spiritual or moral domain. And he uses Christ on the cross as the ultimate historical example of this.
Oh, so?
Well, the ultimate service to humanity didn't happen after some miraculous recovery or in a moment of triumphant physical strength. The service happened in the breaking. The limitation itself was the mechanism of growth.
Okay, bringing that back to the video game analogy. It means the struggle of getting knocked down, losing your gear, and figuring out how to survive. That is the actual experience.
Exactly.
But I do have to push back a little here. Like, if we tell ourselves, and you listening, that our flaws and illnesses are just fine, doesn't that become an excuse for mediocrity? I mean, where is the line between profound acceptance and just, giving up?
That is the most natural fear to have. And the document counters it by bringing in Marcus Aurelius. Think about this guy. He's the most powerful man on earth, an emperor with infinite resources. He's meditating in his tent, and he explicitly tells himself, do not wait for Plato's Republic.
Which, just to contextualize that for a second, Plato's Republic was this abstract, philosophical utopia.
Yeah.
A perfect, flawless society that has literally never existed in human history.
Precisely why Marcus Aurelius warns against waiting for it. The pursuit of utopian perfection, whether it's in society or just in your own personal habits, it only leads to dissatisfaction and delay. By demanding perfection, you basically guarantee you'll do nothing. The goal is progress, not perfection. This isn't complacency at all. It is brutal realism. And honestly, it requires immense discipline to accept where you actually are.
Which brings this really brilliant modern contrast into the mix, because the document pivots straight from a Roman emperor to Aaron Rodgers.
Such a wild jump.
I know, but it highlights this very blunt piece of sports wisdom from him. He says that every year is a new team. You don't automatically carry the knowledge of how to win forward into a new season.
Yeah, you start over.
Exactly. You have to earn it all over again through the new season's mistakes. The chemistry and the perfection you built last year, they're gone. You are starting from a flawed state again.
Because the context of your life is always changing. Your body changes, your environment changes, your challenges change. That whole segment of the document culminates with this amazing insight from the spiritual teacher, Anthony DeMello.
Oh, I love this part.
Yeah, so a seeker asks a master if the path to enlightenment is difficult or easy. And the master replies that it's neither, because the path isn't there. It's a journey without distance. Stop traveling, and you arrive.
Stop traveling and you arrive.
Yeah.
That hits so hard. Because if there is no final destination of perfect to reach, then your current flawed condition isn't a problem you have to solve.
Right. It's the only place arrival is ever possible.
Yeah.
It's about a cognitive shift rather than reaching some physical destination. You aren't giving up. You're just dropping the illusion that you're eventually going to turn into a flawless machine.
But, I mean, if we accept that we're constantly struggling in this imperfect state, it's incredibly easy to get trapped in our own heads. The daily grind can feel completely suffocating.
Oh, totally.
So the document suggests that to manage this claustrophobia, we have to manipulate our sense of scale. We have to zoom way, way out to the cosmos and then zoom immediately back into our living rooms.
Which introduces the second major thread of the deep dive, the practice of shifting your vantage point. Marcus Aurelius literally practiced watching the stars in their courses. He would imagine running alongside them.
Just to clear his head.
Basically, yeah. The psychological goal was to wash away the, what he called the dust of earthly life.
And the document pairs this ancient practice with modern astrophysics, which I think is so cool. Neil deGrasse Tyson is quoted explaining that complex emotional cocktail of looking at the night sky. We get this profound feeling of being infinitesimally small, but simultaneously, we feel an extreme connectedness to the vastness of the universe.
It's a recognized psychological phenomenon. Experiencing all-like, truly confronting a scale vastly larger than ourselves, it actually downregulates the brain's threat response. It forces our entire cognitive framework to reset.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, and the document grounds this feeling in a phrase from the Stoic philosopher Seneca. Mundus ipse est ingens deorum omnium templum. The world itself is a huge temple of all the gods. It means viewing the universe at every scale as sacred.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Is staring at the stars just a philosophical escape hatch?
How do you mean?
Like if the universe is billions of light years across and our solar system is just a speck and I am just a speck on that speck, isn't that just a really convenient excuse to embrace nihilism? Like, why should I care about paying my mortgage or being polite if we're all just earthly dust expanding into a cold void?
That is exactly the trap of misunderstood scale. But the document argues the cosmic perspective does the exact opposite of inducing nihilism. What's fascinating here is that it doesn't teach us to stop caring. It clarifies what actually deserves our profound care.
Okay.
It uses this brilliant, simple quote from Bob Marley to explain this. Some people feel the rain, others just get wet.
Wow. The difference between feeling the rain and just getting wet is the difference between genuine presence and distracted survival.
Yes. When you realize how fleeting and tiny your existence is, the distraction falls away. The cosmos shows you the scale of what matters, and the entire point is to bring that clarity back down into your daily life.
And the document grounds this with a really practical passage from Ryan Holiday's Daily Dad. It poses this challenge. After you stand outside, look up at the infinite expanse of the Milky Way and feel that awe. How long can you go without chiding your kids over something completely trivial?
Like spilling juice or something.
Exactly, like spilling a cup of juice.
It really exposes the absurdity of our anger, doesn't it? The scale of the universe intervenes right there in your living room. It proves that most of the things that ruin our afternoons, the petty arguments and the minor inconveniences, they're just dust. They lack the gravity we assign them.
And that realization that we are assigning way too much gravity to the wrong things, it forces a collision with the third major thread of this synthesis: time.
Oh, this part is intense.
Very. Because once you see what actually matters, you have to face the brutal truth of how you are spending your limited hours. The document uses an incredibly sharp diagnostic tool for this. Alive time or dead time? What will it be?
It applies the Stoic filter of memento mori, which is the deliberate meditation on your own mortality. The thought experiment it demands is totally unforgiving. It asks, if you knew your time was strictly limited, what habits, relationships, or anxieties would you stop engaging in immediately?
And whatever the answer is.
The philosophical imperative is that whatever you identified, you must cut it now.
To illustrate the sheer willpower this takes, the document paints this incredibly vivid scene of Marcus Aurelius. He's the emperor of Rome. It's a freezing morning, and he is lying under his thick, warm blankets, internally arguing with himself about getting out of bed.
And we really have to remember the historical context here. He could have just stayed in bed.
Right. Nobody was going to fire the emperor.
No. I mean, his predecessor, Hadrian, famously spent immense amounts of time indulging himself in his massive villa, essentially just coasting on the empire's momentum. Marcus had absolute power. He could sleep in.
But he forced himself up because he understood that well begun is half won. If you surrender the morning to comfort, you basically surrender the day. When I read the concept of dead time in this document, it immediately made me think of treading water in the deep end of a pool.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it.
Yeah, because treading water, it feels like you're doing work. It feels safe because it keeps your head above the surface. But you aren't swimming toward the edge. You have absolutely no forward momentum. You're just expending energy waiting until you get too tired to keep going. That is what scrolling on a phone for 3 hours is. It's treading water.
That is a highly accurate physical metaphor for a psychological state. And the document scales that daily morning battle up to the trajectory of an entire human life. It brings in the legendary basketball coach, John Wooden.
Right.
He instructed his players to make each day your masterpiece. Now, I know out of context that sounds like a cheesy motivational poster.
A little bit, yeah.
But within this synthesis, it is a rigorous structural claim. A meaningful life isn't created by one giant heroic moment. It is the accumulated structural integrity of thousands of well-lived days. And as the educator David Starr Jordan is quoted saying here, a life's completeness depends entirely on what it was lived for.
But practically speaking, cutting out that dead time like actually stopping the treading water is emotionally agonizing. The document relies on Paulo Coelho to explain this transition. He says that if you're brave enough to say goodbye, life will reward you with a new hello.
Which brings us to the hidden grief embedded in this process. We often assume dead time is just accidental laziness.
Right, just procrastinating.
But it isn't. Dead time is a highly effective coping mechanism. It's a comfortable bad habit or a stream of busy work that we use to numb ourselves so we don't have to face the terrifying real work of living.
So true. Like if I'm furiously answering low-priority emails, I don't have to sit down and write the difficult book I've been dreaming about or have that hard conversation with my partner.
Exactly the dynamic. Letting go of dead time requires immense emotional courage because of the void it creates. When you say goodbye to the distraction, the new hello doesn't arrive instantly. There's a lag.
Yeah.
You have to sit alone in the quiet, uncomfortable, blank space of your own life and tolerate the anxiety of having dropped your armor.
Which flows perfectly into the next layer of this discussion. Because gaining control of your internal time and facing your own void is really only half the battle. Eventually, that internal discipline crashes headfirst into the external world. Specifically, how do we maintain this virtue when we are tested by money, power, and societal pressure?
And this is the fourth thread, the actual canvas of virtue.
Yeah.
The document takes a fascinating detour here to examine the mechanics of moral freedom.
Yeah, and to set the stage for you listening, the source material uses a very specific historical anecdote about Jimmy Carter, long before his presidency, back when he was running his peanut farming business in the mid-20th century. And just to be super clear to you listening, our goal here is to impartially explore the philosophical concept of moral freedom exactly as the text frames it, not to endorse any specific political stances.
Right.
So the situation was this. Carter's successful business was put under intense pressure by the White Citizens Council, which the source describes as a racist organization demanding his compliance and financial support.
And Carter categorically refused. He stated he would rather flush $5 down the toilet than give them a single dime.
His wife, June, who managed the farm's accounting, knew perfectly well that this principled stand would result in boycotts and severe financial damage to their livelihood. But because they had built a highly stable, well-managed financial foundation, they could afford to absorb the blow.
The underlying philosophical point the document extracts here is that their financial stability provided the necessary armor to exercise moral freedom. A less financially stable neighbor, living right on the edge of ruin, might have been coerced into compromising their morals just to feed their family.
But let me challenge this, because this feels incredibly dangerous to me. Doesn't this framework imply that virtue is a luxury good? Like, is moral integrity only available to the wealthy? What is a person struggling to pay rent supposed to do?
That is the exact ethical tension the document wants to provoke. And it resolved it by returning to Stoic philosophy.
Okay.
So the Stoics had a concept of indifference. They believed that external things like wealth, political power, and health are inherently indifferent, meaning they're neither good nor bad on their own. However, they categorized wealth and power as preferred indifference.
Why preferred?
Because if you possess them, they give you greater leverage to facilitate virtuous acts in the world.
Ah, I see. So having the resources isn't the virtue itself. It's just a tool that amplifies whatever your character already is.
Precisely. Marcus Aurelius is the ultimate test case for this. Absolute power is famous for corrupting people, right? But the absolute power of the Roman Empire didn't corrupt him or stain him purple, as the ancient Romans used to say, purple being the extremely expensive dye reserved for emperors.
Right.
The power didn't rot his character. It merely gave his strong character a massive stage.
But the document warns that having that stage is totally useless if you're empty inside. It quotes the fitness philosopher Erwan Lacour, who makes this crucial distinction. He says external conditions like money, stability, or power, they only create the room for virtue. They build the house. But an interior moral covenant, like a strict promise you make to your own soul, is what makes you worthy of actually occupying that room.
And without that interior covenant, the tools of power just become weapons of self-destruction. The document actually caps this entire section with a profound warning from the Shawnee leader, Chief Tecumseh. He commanded his people, abuse no one and no thing. Yeah, and the mechanism behind this isn't just about protecting the victim, it's about protecting the perpetrator. Abuse robs the spirit of its vision. It fundamentally blinds you to the sacred scale of the world we discussed earlier, essentially turning the wise into fools.
That is such a vital pivot, because we usually think about exerting power in terms of money or physical force. But in our daily lives, the most profound way we wield power over others and damage our own spirits is through our words.
Oh, yeah.
Through constant criticism. The document argues that sometimes true power is the active decision to do absolutely nothing.
The discipline of restraint.
Yes. The document introduces a standard from the ancient philosopher Lao Tzu that honestly sounds impossible for modern humans. He states that kind people are never involved in arguments, and those who like to argue are never kind.
It is a shocking absolute.
It is.
But why does Lao Tzu link arguing to a lack of kindness? Because at its core, the desperate need to argue and prove someone else wrong is an attempt to dominate their mind. It is a microscopic form of tyranny.
And to put that into practice, the document highlights a challenge from the Daily Dad. Attempt to go a single 24-hour period without a single word of criticism. And it clarifies an important distinction. This is not toxic positivity. You aren't gaslighting yourself into pretending the world is flawless.
Right. You're not faking it.
Exactly. It's the deliberate, muscular restraint of choosing not to formulate an opinion on every passing annoyance. It is letting things exist without needing to comment on them.
Which requires letting go of the ego's need to constantly validate itself by judging others.
The text uses an analogy from Marcus Aurelius that I honestly cannot stop thinking about. He talks about a thrown stone. He observes that a stone gains absolutely nothing when it's thrown up into the air, and it loses absolutely nothing when it falls back to the dirt.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, how does that translate to the world we live in right now?
It is the perfect diagnosis of our relationship with social media and public approval. Like, we are all the stones. We post a thought or a photo, and the algorithm throws us up into the air in a wave of likes and algorithmic praise.
Yeah.
Our brains flood with dopamine,
Yeah.
and we feel like we are fundamentally gaining value. And then when the internet turns on us with harsh criticism or worse, just ignores us completely, we crash back down and feel like our worth has been destroyed.
It's exhausting.
Totally exhausting.
Yeah.
Because we completely forget the physics of the stone. Our intrinsic human value hasn't changed a single fraction of a percent, whether we're flying high on praise or sitting in the dote of criticism.
That realization about intrinsic value brings this entire philosophical deep dive to its absolute spiritual peak. The document brings Leo Tolstoy back to close the circle here. He reflects on his time sitting with patients who were terminally ill.
Heavy stuff.
Very. But he observed that in the face of death, the ultimate involuntary letting go of all earthly attachments, a magnificent clarification occurs. The record of our petty criticisms, our desperate arguments, our bank accounts, our worldly status, all of it vanishes into thin air. What remains, the only thing that survives that stripping away, is our divine spiritual nature.
Death burns away everything that isn't truly us.
Exactly, and the document ties that profound, heavy realization to a beautiful modern quote from Antonio Ticciarino. He says, "You are not lucky to be here. They are lucky to have you."
So what does this all mean? We have journeyed through Roman battlefields, Russian literature, deep space, and modern basketball courts. The document ends with what it calls a map of threads. How do we tie imperfection, scale, time, and virtue together into a cohesive way to live?
Well, the synthesis reveals that these four threads converge on one central truth. You are limited, mortal, and imperfect, and that is precisely the condition from which meaning becomes possible.
Wow.
Think about it structurally. A cosmic perspective without an appreciation for the intimate present moment is just nihilistic escapism. Recognizing the urgency of time without accepting your flaws just leads to paralyzing anxiety. Accumulating power without an interior covenant of virtue leads to corruption. You need all of them. And the document's final instruction is a call to courage. It says, the calm after the storm is undeniably the best part of the day, but you cannot experience it unless you willingly walk into the storm. You cannot detour around your reluctance, your physical limitations, or the criticism of others. You must move through them.
And as we bring this directly back to you, listening right now, think back to where we started. John Bradshaw told us that mistakes are our teachers. But what are they actually teaching us? They aren't just teaching us how to be more efficient workers or flawless gamers.
No.
They are teaching us that we are beautifully human. They teach us that we are brief and that our very limitation is the only thing that makes our choices matter.
This raises an important final question for you to mull over as you go about the rest of your day. If the pursuit of absolute perfection is just a mirage designed to keep you distracted in the starting zone, what if the very things you are most desperately trying to fix about yourself today are actually the exact tools you will need to survive tomorrow's storm?
You don't need to be finished in order to begin. Thank you for taking this journey with us. Keep questioning your assumptions and stay deeply curious.